That's probably the sketchiest thing I've ever done. I am feeling the altitude. Oh, fish! Last week, I climbed the tallest mountain in the lower 48s, Mount Whitney. You'd think the most challenging part about climbing Mount Whitney is the altitude or the distance, but actually, it's finding a permit. Luckily, I found a spot for August 25th. No adventure is truly an adventure if it all goes smoothly.
Southern California slammed with a tropical storm, the first to move across the region since 1997, bringing mudslides and dangerous flash flooding.
Hurricane Hillary came through and brought torrential rain to the lower slopes of Mount Whitney, and it dropped about a foot of snow towards the summit. People who attempted to hike up the couple of days after Hurricane Hillary said that a lot of the trails were washed out and the rivers were too high to cross safely. So it didn't look like I was going to be able to go. I decided to take a chance and just drive out there. I figured that if the trail wasn't hikeable, then I could still, hang out around Lone Pine. Alabama Hills is right there. Death Valley is only a couple hours away. I could make a little road trip out of it. On Wednesday morning, I packed up the car and I made the 6-hour drive out to Lone Pine. I pulled into Lone Pine at around 6 p.m. I checked into the Mount Whitney motel. After dinner, I spent the rest of the evening packing my bag and just getting ready for the hike the next morning. So on Thursday morning, I made the drive up to the Whitney portal. Just like that, we are off. I can only feel the altitude, and we're still in the parking lot. So we'll see how that bodes for the rest of this trip. I was only hiking up to trail camp that day, which is only 5 miles from the start. I was in no real rush to start just because I knew that if I got to trail camp early, then I'd kind of just be sitting around. Alright, so here's the washed out section. I assume in the past there used to be a trail through here. But now it all just looks like loose gravel. But I think I see the trailhead down there. I pulled into trail camp at around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I set up my tent and I just relaxed. I actually got to talking to the people who were camping one spot over, and they asked me what time I was planning on summiting the next day, and we pretty much had the same time in mind, so we thought, why not leave together? Unfortunately, that night, I did not sleep very well. I opted to bring a new sleeping pad that was lighter, but it was a bit more uncomfortable. And on top of that, there was some strong winds that were shaking the tent and keeping me up all night. At 6:30 the next morning, we started the hike up. I was running low on water, but found this tiny stream, but it was so small, so I had to cut the top off the bottle and make a little, like, what are they called? Funnels. So you can see it. Finally, I made it to the part of the trail that was just below the summit. But there was a huge snowfield blocking that part of the trail, and it was also on a very steep slope, and not a lot of people were doing that part. A hiker that I had passed before said that you kind of just stop before the snowfield and then just scramble up towards the summit. So I just started going up, and this was probably the most physically demanding part of the hike for me personally. But eventually just summited. I spent about a half hour on the summit just eating snacks and drinking water and just hanging out before making my way down. So I made it down to the car about a half hour after it got dark, and luckily no bears were encountered on this part. I stayed another night at a different motel, and then I made the 6-hour drive back home. So yeah, that was my story of climbing Mount Whitney. I hope you enjoyed it, and see you guys in the next one.